Charlie. Mark 1 Charlie.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm full of optimism.
Einstein's theory of relativity.
We're still seeing it quite well through that haze.
T-minus 37 seconds.
The fight is growing confident.
E equals MC.
That all men are created equal.
About the future innovations.
And growing strength in the air.
Tear down this wall. Head on. Something's happening. Coming up on staging.
This is Finding Your Frequency with your hosts, Jeff Spinard and Ryan Treasure. It's time to speak up, share your voice, and hear from the thought leaders.
Mark 1 Charlie. Mark 1 Charlie.
ladies and gentlemen,
I'm full of optimism.
Einstein's theory of relativity.
We're still seeing it quite well through that haze.
T-minus 37 seconds.
The fight is growing confident.
E equals MC.
That all men are created equal.
About the future innovations.
And growing strength in the air.
Tear down this wall. Head on. Something's happening. Coming up on staging.
This is Finding Your Frequency with your hosts, Jeff Spinard and Ryan Treasure. It's time to speak up, share your voice, and hear from the thought leaders.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another wonderful episode of Finding Your Frequency. I'm your host, Ryan Treasure, and we got a great treat for you guys today. We're going to talk about some cool topics, and I know, with being in media for so long and, operating and producing and helping folks with their podcasts and radio shows, there's a topic that comes up all the time. Everyone's like, how do I get an ROI? How do I get my money back? You're either paying somebody to do editing for you, or you're, paying a company like Voice America who does end-to-end solutions for you, or you're doing it yourself and taking your own time to, make your edits and get everything precise and perfect. And, so whatever the case or mechanism it may be that you create your content, it's time consuming. It takes effort. You got to be creative, and especially with so much different content that's out in the world right now. I think when I last checked, there were something like over 950,000 podcasts that were out there in the ecosphere, with new podcasts coming on every day. And I think the current status of the world with a lot of people in the U.S. I know my guest is in Germany, so we'll ask him how things are going over there. But a lot of people, because they've been kind of sequestered, have used YouTube videos and video commentary content and citizen journalism and some of these mechanisms to create content. And more of that content is coming out. I find myself just getting into strange projects at home when I'm there because I'm not doing anything else, and so I'm a technology guy, and I don't know, I'm taking electronics apart like I'm 12 years old again, and it's been interesting. But so that's my outlet, because I'm already doing audio based content. But a lot of people that are in that same scenario, I think, are turning to podcasts and video content and YouTube channels and those things as an outlet for something to kind of swap out the minutia from the day to day as you're working from home. I know my wife has been at home since, I don't know, like February. Here it is. This episode is in September. We're currently recording at the end of August, but she's been home for many a months, and so she's got like all these new projects and stuff going on too. So anyways, the whole point is everybody's bored. They got stuff they need to do, so people are making content, and so we're going to talk about content today, and also talk about some other cool things as it relates to entrepreneurism and why people do what they do and what problems are they trying to solve. And we have a great guest that we're going to talk to today. His name is Alex Riesenkampff, and he's going to be joining us from Germany, which is really cool. He's a serial entrepreneur, past member of SumUp's management team, and co-founder of PrestaCap, an online lender for small businesses. Always good to have a money background when you're an entrepreneur and doing business, because we know cash flow makes the businesses go around. He's had some successes and decided to move to the U.S. to start GetVokl. He's certain that interactive podcasts is the next big thing. I agree. When Alex isn't working on GetVokl, he likes to mountain bike, DJ. We'll talk about that too, my friend, and discuss what politics and society will look like in the future. Alex, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
So, I got this in-studio audience, right? I picked them up on Fiverr. So they were like super cool, and they just hang out in the back and clap whenever I push buttons. It's wonderful.
What else? Do you need to bring them any food or drinks?
They do appreciate Taco Tuesday, right? Which I think all of us do. So I try to hook them up on Taco Tuesday, run through the drive-thru because nothing's open, and bring back a big old box of tacos and, party over here at the Voice America studio.
Okay, so they got a long week ahead of them. It's Wednesday now.
Yeah. Hey, man, thanks for joining the show. I love all the stuff that you're doing. You and I are in a similar space as it relates to, content creation, distribution, all of those fun spaces. I couldn't think of a better time to be doing what we're doing, right?
No, absolutely. I think things are changing big time right now with Corona and everything. So yeah, exciting to talk about content and new ways of creating content.
Yeah, 100%. See, I've been at Voice America for 16 years. We jumped on in the sphere here back in 1999 before, the word podcast was even a glimmer of an idea. And we used to call everything on-demand audio, right? Because there wasn't the term for podcasts. And wow, it's been great, being in the space for so long and, creating content and looking at all the different things, as the industry's been growing up and, really becoming a powerhouse player in the media space with, multiple billions of dollars as a market. And it's just been amazing. We have advertisers that are really, propping up the podcast community now, which, for a long time it was like, advertisers were so scared to, get off standard television, a newspaper or magazine or standard traditional radio ads. And now we're getting a big spend in the podcasting space. And so it's been great. Are you excited about that?
So I must say I'm pretty excited about podcasting also from the perspective of its commercial potential, but I don't think that the ad model will work for podcasting. I think that there's really the top 1% of podcasters are able to get advertising deals, and that's it. Yet the majority of listening happens within the creator segment that you might consider indie podcasters. Those guys are not really getting advertisers on board. And there's, of course, a bunch of technology that could be improved to help those guys get a share of the advertising dollars as well. But I think that it's just not going to happen. I mean, the growth rates in terms of podcast advertisement are not quite there. I mean, yes, it is $1 billion industry today, but if you compare that to, let's say, what online video is pulling in terms of advertising dollars, it's Pluto compared to the sun in terms of, dimensions, right? So
that's what makes YouTube such a force, right? I mean, that, all the video content user generated. I mean, there's, tons and tons of cash in that space.
There's tons of cash in that space, and I think there's tons of cash in podcasting as well. I just don't think that the ad model will work. What I do think will work is more direct monetization models. And by that, I mean where the creators, the podcasters, are able to get paid directly from their fans and their audience. And so that's one of the things that we support at GetVokl. And I think that has potential multifold what advertising had for podcasting. I really believe that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too, and some news stories and some things I'm seeing across social media. I can't remember the website, but there's a bunch of celebrities that have started to move over to this website, right? I'm sure you know what it is.
Cameo.
Right.
Cameo.
And so you have all these folks where, I was reading that one of the celebrities literally made $1 million in a day, right, from their fans were supporting them. And I'm like, $1 million a day? That's amazing.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, there's the term for that is passion economy, or a subset of that is creator economy. And it really refers to the situation where you have a creator, whether that's a celebrity or whether that's a podcaster, and their fans, their audience, who are so crazy about them and also the content that they create or what they stand for in the case of a celebrity, right? and are passionate enough to actually directly pay to get access and a certain amount of insights when it comes to that creator, right? And so there's a bunch of different platforms that are capitalizing on this trend. Cameo, you just mentioned that they're one. It's essentially, if you like Brock Lesnar wrestling, or I don't know, what are you into? Big radio personalities, if they're on Cameo, you can pay a couple $100, for example, and have them give your best buddy a birthday greeting of 20-second video or something like that. And so if you add all of that up, the creators can make amazing money through these platforms. It exists in the gaming vertical. Of course, as always, gaming and adult lead the pack when it comes to
always
pioneering new experiences, right? But I think now this is established enough so that it is available for markets like podcasting. And that's really what we're addressing, not only letting podcasters interact with their fans, but letting them get paid at the same time.
No, that's really cool because, when I'm doing some content every once in a while, and I've had sponsors come from, a myriad of different podcast spaces like AdvertiseCast and, I'm not saying porn, just everybody, it's called Podcorn, right? I brought that up to somebody and they're like, pod porn. I'm like, no, Podcorn. I'm like, no, we're not talking about X-rated podcasts. So we've gotten some ads from those things and they've been helpful. And, I'm a radio guy. I've been in traditional radio, started AM and FM, back in the 90s. And, that business model of advertising based radio will always work because the advertisers for those radio stations are all local companies. But when you start looking at, podcasting and some of the stuff like what Voice America does, our audience is truly global, right? We have people accessing content from all over the globe, 160 different countries. It's actually amazing to go look at the stats on podcasts and look at where the reach is. And I'm like, whoa, these places that don't even speak English. It's like I had 77 people listen to my show last week, like in Vietnam or, in Afghanistan. And it's kind of interesting. Like, I feel like sometimes, that, hey, that's really cool that there's people listening to me. And we bring concepts and content to the table where, I feel sometimes like the advertiser is like interrupting what I'm trying to get across with a guest or, I'm trying to, like specifically like with our interview, right? It's great to kind of give people an idea of the state of podcast and advertising and, some things that are out there in the ecosphere to kind of give them some tools to understand how they can make their content better. We talk about entrepreneurism. And so for people who are running businesses, how they can be better leaders, right? Really talking about all of these things because finding your frequency is all encompassing in that space of, we can talk to anybody about finding their frequency, which is the premise of the show. And that's why I think people listen to the show because we're bringing some really cool content to the table. And, we're trying to have a diverse show with listeners all over the space and not be niche. So, we have people that are coming to get, tips and tricks from an author who wrote something about leadership. Might be radio show hosts or podcasters who listen to this as we, kind of run down the road. And sometimes ads just get in the way of the messaging, right? And so I think that what you're talking about in the space really addresses that as well and allows the creator to be, always creative, always in that same flow in that space where they can put out the content in the manner that they want. Because that's one of the reasons why I left traditional radio was because the narrative was being pushed by the advertisers. And I'll give you an example. I won't use any names of companies or anything like that, but one of our talk show hosts was talking about depression on the show. We had like a doctor who did a show like on a Sunday morning. And so he's talking about depression and was talking about, how sometimes taking certain medications that are supposed to help depression make depression worse. And he starts naming off some of these names. Well, we had a meeting on that Monday and the program director comes in and he's like, you guys got us in trouble. You got to be careful what you're talking about, what kind of specifics you mention, because come to find out, the pharmaceutical company that owned one of the drugs that he mentioned was a sponsor of the radio station. And when they were spot checking their ads for the previous day, they're like, whoa, wait a minute. You put my ad right after a doctor telling us not to take these medications. And so then it was like, hey, you can't talk about this. You can't do this because the sponsor is there, right? And that's really the reason why I had to get out of traditional radio, because, you know, I can't in my right mind like endorse a product that I've never tried, right? So when Harry's reached out to me and was like, hey, Ryan, we're going to send you some razor blades that are awesome, that are made in Germany, and you can use them, right? Which has been a sponsor on the show. I'm like, sweet. So I can actually try out the product before I talk about it. Whereas in radio, they're like, yeah, this plumber's great. I've been doing business with them for 20 years, and it's all just a lie, you know? And so,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the pharmaceutical example is a great one, and it's an extreme example, but yeah, I mean, that's one aspect of it, that advertising limits you in what you can do because the advertiser is super concerned about their brand, and they're just super picky and anal about everything that you say, right? And then you get limited in your creative freedom and essentially in your freedom of speech. And if you have a radio show called Voice America, I believe that is not a good thing, right?
Correct.
So that's one thing. But the other thing is people just hate advertisements and podcasting, which really started by folks that did it for the passion and that never even remotely planned that it would become the thing that it has become, let alone be able to make money with it. Has created a culture that wasn't very conducive, I think, to advertising. And so really the only kind of advertising that works for podcasting is ad reads, because then the authenticity and the personality of the podcaster transports into the ad. But ad reads are, in terms of the process, not very efficient, right? Like, yeah, you can have, I don't know, the biggest podcasters do ad reads, and then their audiences are big enough for the advertisers to be able to have direct relationships with those podcasters, but not for, you know, the thousands, the dozens of thousands of indie podcasters that have, as you said, very distributed, but in many cases not very big audiences, right?
Yeah.
So how are you going to sort of have 1,000 podcasters do an ad read that really resonates with whatever their content is about and all of that? It doesn't scale. It just doesn't work. And then, of course, the freedom of speech point that you made earlier, and all the while you have the audience that's totally willing to pay for good content given some easy way of paying. And so I think that folks are starting to figure out that's the problem you need to solve. Give the opportunity to the audience to pay and reciprocate for the amazing content inspiration that they're getting from, you know, folks like yourself.
Hey everybody, I wanted to tell you about this great shaving product that I've been using lately. Not only is it awesome, it will save you money. Enough to buy 26 cups of coffee in New York City or 3 deep dish pizza dinners in Chicago. Harry's is an awesome product. It delivers high-quality razor blades as low as $2 each, a fraction of the price of leading brands, and saving you hundreds of dollars at the same time. I really like the way that Harry's works. It has a very close shave, it's got a great design for the handle, and also the scent of the shave gel is fantastic, and it leaves your skin nice and smooth. You can get a trial set delivered to your doorstep by going to harrys.com/frequency. Quality, durable blades at a fair price, just $2 a blade. They've cut out middlemen manufacturing blades in their German blade factory that's been honing precision blades for a century. I'm telling you, I use this product and it is absolutely amazing. Harry's has all your grooming needs covered in just one stop. You can get blades, hair care, shower products, all on harrys.com. And just like their blades, Harry is committed to providing premium products without breaking the bank. Again, visit harrys.com/frequency. I want to make sure that everybody gets the chance to go check it out. You can feel better too about the purchase because 1% of their proceeds are set aside for nonprofit organizations developed to helping provide access to better mental health care for men and veterans. How could you not get behind the veterans? So important nowadays. Listeners of the show can redeem their Harry's trial set at harrys.com/frequency. You'll get a weighted ergonomic handle for a firm grip, 5-blade razor with a lubricating strip and a trimmer blade. I use it every day. Rich lathering shave gel with aloe to keep your skin hydrated. And I'm telling you, when you get done shaving, your face will feel so smooth, it's amazing. You even get a travel blade cover to keep your razors dry and easy to grab on the go. So make sure you go to harrys.com/frequency to start shaving and saving today. I look at my listener stats and I'm like, wow, if I had 50 cents, right, for every one of those listeners.
Exactly.
You know, and I think too, like, you know, you go on Amazon or iTunes or whatever, and you want to buy a song, right? A song costs $1, you know, it's 99 cents, or sometimes the premium songs are like $1.29 or whatever. But, you know, people are willing to pay $1.29 for like basically 3 to 5, 6 minutes, 8 minutes, or 10 minutes if it's Freebird. But, you know, they're paying, you know, that dollar for, you know, that amount of entertainment. So, you know, if they're willing to pay that for 5 minutes of entertainment, why wouldn't they be willing to pay $1.29 for an hour and a half of striking conversation around things that are cool or that matter? Or, you know, if you're a tech guy and you do a tech show and you have people like myself that are tech junkies, and I can't stop reading articles about what's the best 8K USB camera, what's the best smartwatch, what, you know, I do karate, so I'm always looking at smartwatches, like, how can I track all my stuff?
Absolutely. I think, and you know, one thing is your audience is willing to pay for the content, but when you make it interactive, they're getting more than just content, right? They're able to participate. They might be able to ask you a question directly. They might even be able to meet someone else who really loves your show and who they might be able to become friends with. And that's when you start giving value even beyond the content, and that is where you know, members of the audience really are willing to pay more, you know. And then you're kind of in the psychology of, why are you tipping your server, or, you know, why are you tipping anyone who provides services to you? Because, you know, there's goodwill there, and there just needs to be a way to transport that goodwill. And I think that is what a lot of folks are starting to realize, and that's also what GetVokl is all about.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, and I think for me and for Voice America, that's why, you know, when we bring on, like, so we do live radio shows, right, that are 100% live. But I also have so many hosts that are, you know, like what we're doing right now. You and I are on Zoom, right? So I could easily, we could go live on Facebook, right? I could be checking my comments and interacting with people simultaneously while I'm doing the recording of the podcast, or in many spaces on our vertical channels that are linear that have a new show every hour, right? You know, those hosts are going live, not on Voice America's Facebook page. They're going live on their page for their show, right? Because that Voice America, we're just like a conduit for people. We're not we're like a soapbox for people to stand on, right? A technology set for them to leverage, to be able to get out their voice, and to have, you know, professionals in the space that are able to guide them in that space. And I'm always like, you guys need to do your show live, do it on Facebook, right? So you can have that interactivity. And even I know that you don't agree with the current sponsorship model, but I have seen a huge difference in radio shows and podcasters that provide interactivity for the listeners, and just from a strictly size of audience base and how fast you can build that audience or scale the audience from, you know, onset of said radio show, and like, let's say in 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, or whatever the case may be, those shows that have interactivity components to them are, you know, 100% faster at scaling the audiences for their content than the ones who just do a audio based podcast. Let's say you host it on Libsyn or something like that, and you're just uploading your audio. I had a, you know, right. And so that interactivity is a big difference. And I've had people be like, oh, I had this live radio show. And there's something also for us with like being actually live, right? Where like it's in real time. I could pick up the telephone and call this person, like, you know, people used to do in regular AM and FM radio, probably when we were kids, and that nobody does anymore. Cause now they're just like, hey, I'll send you a DM, I'll tweet at you, I'll send you a Facebook message, right? There's all these other ways of communication and interactivity that can be had while doing the content. So I really love what you guys are doing, man. That's like super cool, and stuff that we've been pushing for a long time with our hosts is just, you know, you've got to make a connection with your audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The connection with the audience, that's the key part. And so you're mentioning a bunch of the things that GetVokl is all about. It's about making that connection with the audience, and that is fun for the creators because you're getting something back, right? A lot of podcasters complain about, hey, the only real way for me to understand if my audience is liking what I'm doing or not is, are my downloads going up or down, right? I don't have a feedback loop. I don't know what is good and what is bad. What do they like? What should I double down on, right? So the connection is super important for that. But then also the connection amongst the audience, right? If you're a podcaster and you podcast on something extremely specific, like horse cart racing or something like that, or horse racing, which would be a bigger niche, right?
We have a show on that. It's called Winning Ponies. I work with those guys every week. They have a very niche show. It's a different animal when you have a niche show. It's very different.
But guess what? The listeners of Winning Ponies,
they love them.
They're diehard. They're all about it. They go to the races. Their social circles happen around passion, right? That's what I meant by passion economy earlier. And so, let's say Winning Ponies is probably a bigger one, and horse racing is a pretty big niche. But let's just assume it was only 1,000 listeners, and I'm sure it's like probably 100 times that. But let's just assume for a second it was, right? Those 1,000 listeners might really have a strong affinity towards each other, right? They might be potential friends, yet they're in all kinds of different places in the world, and they will never meet each other. And so if you have something that allows for interactivity and gives faces even to these 1,000 listeners, then that allows them to become friends. And now suddenly you as the podcaster, you as the creator, you're not only creating great content, you're not only creating great interactivity between you and the audience, you're also connecting people that have mutual passions. And that's one thing that I think podcasters can really do. And it is, it's more than just, you can make money with this, and it's more than it's just fun. I think this is really essential in our society today, that more of these communities happen around stuff that people can get together versus stuff that divides, right? I mean, we're so, like in the US, we're more divided than we ever have been. And I think podcasters are really agents of change to create more community, whereas you have platforms like Facebook and whatever, where you really don't have that accountability in many cases.
Right.
People can, just do whatever, say whatever, that are extremely divisive. So, for me, GetVokl is also about empowering podcasters to be those, we call it community anchors, and build relationships between people that might not otherwise have happened. And I'll give you an example, right? So we have this programming block on Thursdays that we call True Crime Thursdays, right? So it's a bunch of different podcasters that come on every hour, and we'll do shows with their audiences based on the latest true crime podcast episodes that they put out. And the thing about true crime is everyone loves it. And that means that you have a bunch of people that come from all different walks of life that love it. And they're like, true crime bullshit, or crawl space podcast. I love this. I've been listening to you guys for a couple of years now. And then they, Ryan meets Alex in a GetVokl show, and we start geeking out about crawl space or something like that. And we make a connection, we become friends on the platform, all of that. And then at some point, we're friends. At some point, we start talking about maybe something else. Maybe one day we even talk about politics, right? Which is probably the most divisive topic that you can even imagine. Given that we're already friends and that we already have that mutual passion, we'll be so much more respectful towards each other when we talk about these things that are otherwise so divisive, right? So it's about creating friendships and connections around stuff that people love to help also more difficult conversations work in a more positive way, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. Are you having trouble finding hand sanitizer? Well, Spa Treat has you covered. There's no need to go searching high and low. Just visit spatreatofficial.com and place your order on their easy-to-use website. On-schedule delivery. One of the great things about this product, Spa Treat Fulfillment Team is working around the clock to provide people hand sanitizer during this time of need and get your order to you as quickly as possible, even faster than Amazon. Spa Treat also has the lowest price of any of its competitors. Spa Treat has 62% alcohol content, and the FDA recommends between 60 to 80 for maximum protection. This one has 62 because it doesn't dry your hands out. I use this stuff every single day. It is fantastic. It's got certified organic extracts with the ingredients in that hand sanitizer that are of the highest quality, and they're designed to leave your hands smelling and feeling fresh while protecting you at the same time. The best part, there's no tricky residue left over. None of that sticky stuff. 4 scents available: unscented, tea tree, lavender, and lemon. And best of all, this product right here is made in the good old United States of America. A lot of companies are having trouble dealing with the current demands, so Spa Treat has dedicated themselves to providing a much needed product in the time of crisis. Spa Treat has better prices, faster shipping, and a larger supply than any of their competition. There isn't even a close second. Visit SpaTreatOfficial.com and enter promo code SPA SPA at checkout to receive 5% off your entire order. That's right. Not only are they offering the lowest price available, but they're also offering our listeners a discount. This promo code is exclusive to Voice America, and only our listeners get this discount. Spa Treat and Voice America came together on this sponsorship in order to provide Americans something they could really need right now: peace of mind. Visit SpaTreatOfficial.com and order yours today. That's SpaTreatOfficial.com, and make sure you use the promo code SPA at checkout to receive 5% off your entire order. SpaTreatOfficial.com. Get your awesome hand sanitizer. I've been in this space for a long time, and we've worked with Fortune 500 companies to brand radio shows and podcasts, and we've worked with, a dude who owns a yoga studio in small town USA, right? So in all of those spaces, and everybody always asks, well, how do I get an ROI on my podcast? How do I get an ROI? I need to, and I have to constantly remind people all the time that ROI doesn't necessarily come in the form of like money either, right? You have a unique opportunity with your audience in a space where, and I can use an example too. I've watched this happen. I'm doing a podcast, and I really like Alex because Alex is a technology guy. He's building cool tools. I think you and I would get along. But you know what? I also like the idea of maybe Voice America and GetVokl working together, right? Or doing some kind of business or something, whatever it may be. What better way for us to kick off a relationship by me to use my platform as a networking tool, right, to bring on interesting individuals and meet them, very similar to what you're saying with the audience being able to connect to each other, especially when you talk about some of those divisive topics. Like I just met you today, right? I'm not going to be like, so Alex, who are you voting for president? Like I'm not going to get into that conversation, right? But like you said, if we had a bunch of similar interests, we were like chit-chatting about, why finding your frequency is cool, and, why, like you said, geeking out on it. And then we're able to, move down to the space of having other conversations in the space. You're absolutely right. Having a conversations with somebody about politics straight off of the street, and some of the videos that I see on Facebook where people do that, I'm like, God, woo, you guys are courageous.
Courageous, and also, the people, let's be honest, the people that that really still actively post on Twitter and on Facebook, I would say are folks that are, as you said, very courageous, and the I think a lot of folks that would be willing to have those kind of conversations, they're kind of drowned out because they're afraid of the courageous ones, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So I think it's, if as a creator you're able to build trust with your audience, but also allow your audience to connect with each other and build trust amongst your audience, that is, as you said, ROI that has a social dimension.
Yeah.
Societal dimension.
Listeners, if you guys are listening to Alex, I need some feedback from you guys. I haven't gotten any in a little while, so you guys got to send me an email, right? info@voiceamerica.com, Ryan@voiceamerica.com, And this is funny you bring this up. I do this all the time. At the end, the beginning of the show, I'm talking to the listeners and I'm like, and then we'll get a couple of reviews or something on Apple iTunes. But, I'm like asking people specifically, call me, text me, or, I'm not going to put out my phone number, but, send me an email. I'd like to hear from you. And it's like, I look at the listener stats and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of listeners for very little communication. Right. And so that interactivity component is really important and something that I should have been doing before. I'm just like everybody else. I'm super busy. I work in this industry and I work with 300 creators on a weekly basis to create 400 to 500 hours of content. On top of that is I also I can't advocate for something if I'm not, I can't advocate for a Rolls Royce if I'm not driving a Rolls Royce, right? So super important that, the radio show that we do has meaning in a couple of different ways, right? For me, just like the same way, like you're going to do shows on GetVokl, right? You're going to be on there. You're going to be, on the platform sharing your ideas and creativity. And you can't advocate for your platform if you're not using your platform, right?
Very fair. Very good point. You absolutely can't. Yeah. In the tech world, I think it's referred to as eating your own dog food. Thank God, interacting on GetVokl feels like a better experience than eating dog food by now.
100%. I've seen a lot of app developers come out with apps that they haven't even tested themselves, right? They write content, put it out there, and have other people do testing on it. They say it's good, they release it, and I'm like, if you're the creator, that'd be like Henry Ford not test driving the first, tea bucket that rolled off the line, and saying, hey, you know what, this thing's pretty cool. Let's make 7,000 more of these, right? And like, do you think Carroll Shelby never drove the first Shelby car that he created before he had the brand? If you've seen the movie, he absolutely did.
I think the only type of business person, if that could be called, that should not too extensively test their own product are drug dealers. Everyone else should make sure that they really intensively, as they say, eat your own dog food.
Yeah.
To be your own user so that you can put yourself into the shoes of your customers. Super important.
So Alex, before we started recording, I made a comment about entrepreneurs, right? I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about, you specifically. I made a comment and I said, people don't just wake up in the morning and go, hi, I'm going to be an entrepreneur today. All right, let's go walk the plank into the unknown and go start a business, right? That's usually not what happens. And your answer to me was, oh no, it usually happens at night. And so we agree that it happens at night because usually it happens because of a frustrating day, right? You get frustrated at, your 9 to 5 or your current situation or whatever it is. And you're like, I can't do this anymore. I'm totally done. I got to go do my own thing. We talk to so many entrepreneurs and they're like, it's great to be my own boss, but it was also the most frightening thing that I've ever done in my entire life. There's some solace sometimes when you have a salary-based 9 to 5 position and, you're not an owner of a company and you have all of these large responsibilities. But, for you specifically, what was your finding your frequency moment, your aha moment where you were like, you know what? I'm done doing what I'm doing. In our promo, it says summoning the intestinal fortitude to get out there and try, right, and do something new. So, like, what was your moment where you decided, you know what, I'm gonna go do my thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it was, sometimes you have light bulb moments, and then you just like flicking a switch. You just, before that second, you didn't know, then you do. I think in my case, my path to becoming an entrepreneur was more a sum of a bunch of different occasions. One of them was that I grew up, and my dad was an entrepreneur as well. So I already sort of grew up seeing what it means to be an entrepreneur, and that there's liberties that gives you, but also sacrifices that you make. And all entrepreneurs listening to this and out there know exactly what I'm talking about. For me personally, I think if there was one moment when I realized, okay, I got to be an entrepreneur, was when I was working for a large bank that was pretty much my first job. And I realized that, and, you know, working for a bank and, you know, having a 9-to-5 job, I think it's super important. That's what makes our economy run. You know what I mean? Like, not everyone can be an entrepreneur. It wouldn't be a good thing if everyone was an entrepreneur. But just for me personally,
hey, but entrepreneurs are job creators though too. Like
they are.
Yeah.
But then, of course, you know, the job creators still need folks that will, you know, do those jobs. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, if everyone was an entrepreneur, we wouldn't get far either. So I just want to sort of make that distinction.
Yes.
But yeah, it was working for that bank, and I just felt that what I'm good at, and that's, you know, creating things, coming up with new ideas, executing quickly, all those, you know, coming up with an idea and then saying, okay, great, we don't know where this is going to be, but just running with it, that was completely quenched in this job, right? Like, I came up with ideas, people look at me and just say, okay, yeah, let's put that to the roadmap or whatever, you know what I mean? And so I just felt like what I had to offer was not making any difference and not even being appreciated. And I felt unhappy about it, right? Immediately, like, I was in that job for a couple of months and I felt like, damn, you know, this doesn't feel good. And then the next thing that started happening is like, I don't want to go to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the next thing that happened is I started doubting myself. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I'm not this, that, or the other enough. And so at some point I just realized this has been a very valuable lesson. I cannot work in an environment as this is. And then I had this huge blessing, I can only call it that, to meet an entrepreneur that said, Alex, come work for me. And one of the most successful entrepreneurs in Europe now, you know, the main investor and even co-founder of GetVokl. And I got to work with him for the first couple of years of his startup, which is now, you know, a multi-unicorn, as they say. And I just realized, okay, wow, all of these things that weren't valued and appreciated when I was working for that bank suddenly make all the difference and make me very successful working for this entrepreneur. And that's when I realized, okay, it's it's entrepreneurialism or nothing for me.
Oh, that's a great story, man. That's a great story. And, you know, I totally get your where you're coming from. There's been a bunch of times in my life where so I'm an operations guy, right? I do, you know, people are like, oh, how does this work? And I'm like, all right, let me give you a step-by-step instruction manual, that will walk you through exactly what you need to do. And then I'll throw in, a couple of option A, option B things in case, something goes a little bit sideways. You have some fallback plan to use in these particular areas. And so that's just kind of the way my brain works in a working environment. And so many times I've, brought to management, when I'm not here past, brought to management, we could be a little bit more efficient and probably make a little bit more revenue if we did A, B, and C. I'm totally noticing it. And that's exactly what you get. Oh, hey, thanks for the input. That's a great idea. But, that's not on our current roadmap, but I like it. We'll put it on our, over here for things to possibly consider in the future board on the whiteboard, that when they point over here, there's not actually a whiteboard over there.
Exactly.
I actually took my whiteboard down. I had a big giant one on this wall back here that you see in the video. You guys can't see it on the podcast, but
it's what you're talking about is the idea cemetery.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you'll notice I have this, and it has doors that open and they're totally closed. And it's funny. I gave up with the whole marker board thing a while back, and I'm like, you know what? There's this thing that Microsoft has that's just an amazing tool that allows you to keep all your notes. It's called OneNote. Yeah. And so, OneNote's amazing. And I have this cool Samsung Note to use my OneNote because you can write on it. And so, it's been great. No more whiteboards for me. Then I can easily send my ideas to people that need to see my ideas that way also, rather than taking pictures of the whiteboard and sending them in a text message.
Yeah, so back to the what was your moment of becoming an entrepreneur? I think I'm not one to say being an entrepreneur is the greatest thing that you can do, because as I mentioned earlier, not everyone can be an entrepreneur. If everyone was an entrepreneur, our world wouldn't function. I think it's kind of, everyone needs to realize how they work, what makes their boat float. And specifically, if you think about security as one extreme and freedom and creativity as another extreme, where on that scale do you fall? And if you are more on the freedom and creativity and risk-taking side, then you're just going to be an entrepreneur. You're not even, like, if I had stayed at that bank, I would have also not done well. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's people that can succeed in those environments and really thrive. I would have been an underperformer. So the only place where I can bloom is some place that is very entrepreneurial, that is very, free and allows me to be creative and do stuff. That said, like all other entrepreneurs, I pay a price for it. It's tough. It's a struggle. You mean development calls at like 11 o'clock at night and yeah, those are the enjoyable tidbits compared to some of the other stuff. I mean, people lose their financial stability. People go broke over being entrepreneurs, right? I mean, it's like they're taking existential risks. So thank God I've never had to pay the price of, going broke or something like that, because the things that I've done worked out, but most things don't, right? Yeah, and so it's something that a price you have to be willing to pay.
You guys have to check out this new service that I'm playing around with called Issue. It is totally amazing. You live to create, but you don't live to worry over the last nitpicky details involved in putting final touches on contact. You got to do what you do best and let Issue handle the rest. If you're a creative, you know the drill. You're finally done editing. It's perfect. Now you just need format and reformat for every single platform. With Issue, make it once, and it's ready to post everywhere. Seriously, Issue is the all-in-one platform to create and distribute beautiful digital publications, from brochures to magazines and sales collateral. It's perfect for creators, marketers, designers, educators, publishers, salespeople, or just anyone that wants to make eye-catching content that can be distributed on multiple platforms. Issue makes it really simple. Just upload the PDFs and files, and Issue transforms them using your vision and customizable templates to create the content you want. With Issue, you just create it one time and distribute it everywhere. Everything is optimized to post on your website, social platforms like Instagram and Facebook. They can even help you make animated Instagram stories. And the best part about it, it is free. FREE free. That's right, it's free to get started with Issue. So go to issue.info/frequency to sign up for your free account. That's ISSUU.info/frequency to sign up and let them know that you heard about it from this show, Finding Your Frequency. Remember, that's .info, not .com, .info. So go to ISSUU.info/frequency and get your free account today. I've spoken to 100 different authors of, books that have been Amazon bestsellers, New York Times bestsellers. I got a couple back here that we interviewed last year that were part of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series with Robert Kiyosaki. And there was a common thing amongst those entrepreneurs, right? And a lot of them had said, I had to fail like 6 times before my next idea succeeded. And, a lot of these folks that have been entrepreneurs have gone on to become business consultants and coaches and authors and, sharing their expertise in building businesses and such. And that's been a common theme when we're doing interviews with folks, that they've failed a bunch of times. And each time they failed, they learned something, and they didn't do that the next time. And the next time something failed, it wasn't because of the reason it failed the last time. But, those are great stories for people like you to hear, because, that was one thing that I thought that was interesting about some of their messaging was, I'm doing this because I want more entrepreneurs to fail less. Right. Let me give you some of the insight on how I've failed. So that way, when you become an entrepreneur, or you decide to be an entrepreneur, or whatever the case may be, you've got a semi bit of a roadmap of things to not do to make sure that you don't fall into the same space. And it's super cool of them to give that information for $29.95 per book, right? I mean, you've got to monetize your work and your efforts, and so
absolutely,
So,
absolutely. And I think failing. Think about fail. I mean, like, just because I've been successful overall with my ventures doesn't mean that I haven't failed. I pretty much fail every day, right? You know what I mean? I think failing is more like the individual battle. You fail all the time, every day, but the war is won when you stand up every time after you've failed. And so I think, without failing, you don't build that resilience to stand up after a failure. And so it's very important. I totally agree. But, if you look at, let's say, failure in terms of I started a project and then I had to end it and it failed, right? It ended, it failed. I didn't do it anymore. That's also a question of how long do you fight? And there are so many examples where failure is also a question of you didn't fight too long. Yes, there is the time where you got to throw in the towel, of course, absolutely, right? If, like you're burning out your health or like your family's financial situation is at stake and you're risking the existence of not only yourself, but people that depend on you, there are times where quitting is the best thing that you can do. But I think there are a lot of times when people just lose faith, lose hope, just even though they love something, stop to believe in it, and it's premature. And if they had pushed on just a little bit harder for a little bit longer, it wouldn't have been failure, but it would have been breakout success. And so if there's one lesson that I can share with anyone who's listening to this, it's stick with it, right? Determination, grit. It's the single, more than intelligence, more than whatever, right? More than how funny you are, how well you are, how creative you are. If you stick with something, determination is the key to success. The one biggest contributing factor.
Stick-to-itiveness.
Stick-to-itiveness. I love that.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I've been successful in anything that I do is not because I'm smarter than anybody, not because I'm higher educated than anybody. It's because I come in early and I work harder than everyone, right? And so that's one of the things that I think is a specimen of stick-to-itiveness, right? Is, the effort that you're putting into what you're doing. Far too many times do I talk to people who have really cool ideas, but like they just, for lack of a better term, they won't get off the couch, right? They won't take action on those things. And that's one of the reasons why I've been at Voice America for 16 years. I have worked every level of this company. It started off to me just a 9-to-5, like a job, right? In the very beginning, and back in 2004 when I started here, I was just coming out of AM and FM radio, right? And was like, I can't do that anymore, but I still needed to work. I had to make money. I had to pay for my apartment, that kind of stuff. I had just gotten out of the Navy and was like, I need to go do something. I knew I was doing radio and all that. I just finished some school and it was pretty cool. And I got a student loan I got to pay back. I need to go get a job. I don't want to work in AM or FM. So I got this cool opportunity to come here. And over time, it morphed into something more. We were a public company. I got to do really cool interactive media projects when I was the audio video production operations manager. Really long, giant title that barely fit on a business card. But I traveled around the I traveled around the country and worked with businesses to create, cool website greetings with people walking on the screen and be like, "Yo, hey, what's up? My name's Joe. I'm the CEO of blah blah blah. Look at my website. You can click here, 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 or here, right?" And they could explain it. And so it was really cool. And getting the opportunity to be creative in that space and kind of and use my skills in a manner of being able to do that. And nobody telling me, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. Like I never ran into anything where I brought an idea to the table and they put it over here on the whiteboard that doesn't exist. it's always been like, hey, that's pretty cool. Let's talk about that. And it ended up to where, now we're a private company. We were public. We took the radio portion private back in 2010. And, myself and Jeff Spinard, our CEO, it was great to pull that away and run an online internet radio station by actual radio guys, and not
that's awesome.
Not the board,
That's awesome.
not the board of directors who don't even know what radio is. They have an IP strategy because we had some patents, and I don't know. I went to court 3 times to litigate with. I had to talk about to the the Yahoo lawyers 3 different times. I had to go to Palo Alto, and that was like, wow, this is a complete crazy waste of my time, all because these guys want to make money on the IP strategy for that. And it was great to just walk away, but and that's the reason I'm here, and the same reason why you do what you do. You get to be creative. I love it. I can't
and you
think
love it,
myself
and
to
I
anything
feel
else.
that I like talking and you know what? Even though we don't even know each other, we're resonating, pun intended, right? Because I can feel that you love what you do, and I think if more people do what they love, overall they'll be more successful.
Are we really
and that's
working?
Really how you.
Right? Like, I can tell the same way, like you're explaining your journey to entrepreneurism, and I know these folks can't see it, but you're standing up, you're like, your arms are moving, you're excited about what you're talking about. And I love the energy on that. And if you guys can see Alex, he's got a smile on his face. He loves talking about what he's doing. He loves, the space that he's in. He loves the fact that he's an entrepreneur, even though sometimes things get challenging. I deal with that here at Voice America all the time. I'm like, oh wow, pandemic. Whew. I didn't have that one on the chart. That never even made option A, B, or C as a backup plan anywhere, right?
Yeah, right. Crazy times.
Yeah, we talked about this on a show earlier this month, and it was kind of like, that adage of like, first time, shame on you, second time, shame on me, right? Something entrepreneurs got to be prepared for, because now that business leaders and owners and entrepreneurs, now that we know that this is a possibility, we need to have a backup plan for in the event that this happens again, because I think, globally, right, with all the stuff that happened because of the coronavirus, the economic impact globally is probably one of the most significant things that's happened in the last 100 years, economically.
Yeah. That's a big can of worms. I feel very strongly about that. Yeah, it's crazy. I think we're in a major black swan event.
100%. Yeah.
And it's not over. I'm an optimist. Otherwise, I wouldn't be an entrepreneur. But I think we're not even close to having seen all of the stuff that this the Rona is bringing.
The Rona, yeah, that's funny. We our audio engineers and we joke about that as well. We'll call it the Rona. And you're right? This thing popped off in like September of 2020. We're recording this in August, and we're only 6 months into this thing. Basically, it's like very brand new. If it was a startup, like we'd be a 6 month startup. We're just barely getting going, right? I need to go get around to funding.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's hope the Rona.
Tell me about it.
Let's hope the Rona doesn't get any round of funding, right? Other than vaccine funding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it got a lot of funding already. Its coffers are bursting.
Yeah. Alex, thank you so much for jumping on, man. I really appreciate you being on the radio show, and I love what you guys are doing. Your GetVokl is super cool. Is that live now, or when are you guys hitting the streets with that?
Oh, it's live already. You can download it on the App Store or on Google Play. You can also go to www.getvokl.com and use it as a browser app. There's stuff happening. It's really like now is the time to come and check it out and find your tribe.
You know what? And Alex, I was serious earlier. You and I got to connect offline and figure out how Voice America and GetVokl can work together. I got a bunch of people that would probably love to do some stuff with you. I want to get on a GetVokl. What do you guys call your sessions? Right? Do you have a cool name
Vocals?
for this?
Vocals.
Nice. Well, I want to GetVokl, man. I'd love to check out the platform. I appreciate you being on, guys. Check it out. It's GetVokl.com. GetVokl, and you can check it out. And of course, we got Alex. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Really appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're tuning in on your favorite pod-catching device, right, there's so many of those places that podcasts reside. I don't even list them out anymore. I just call them podcatchers, Alex. They're just catching the pods and putting them out there, right? So however you're listening to us, we appreciate y'all listening to us. Please make sure and give us a nice review. 5 stars are better than 4. I think we're a 5-star show. We definitely deserve the 5 stars. If you have any information you want to send us, please info@voiceamerica.com, Ryan@voiceamerica.com. And we'll be live next week right here on the Voice America Variety channel. So stay tuned. We'll have another one for you guys next week. We appreciate everybody listening. Ryan Treasure, I'm out.